Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another Fandom Fest program at the Barrington Area Library. My name is Haley, and I'm an adult services librarian. And with me is librarian Kate. Kate, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Kate. I'm also at the Barrington Area Library. Welcome this evening.
And we also have Ashley. Ashley, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Ashley. I'm Hufflepuff, and I'm glad you all could make it here today.
Thank you so much for joining us. And our program for the evening is Quidditch for Beginners, and it's going to be presented by the Chicago United Quidditch Club. So at this point, we'd like to turn things over to them. And just so you guys all know, we are recording this program. So please keep your microphones muted, but you can send questions to us via the chat box if that works for you. We may even be able to open it up to live questions later on. So we'll let you know if that's a possibility. Thank you.
Well, hi everyone. I'm Hannah. I'm the president of Chicago United Quidditch Club, and we're really excited to tell you about Quidditch, which, believe it or not, is a real life sport. So, like Haley said, we're Chicago United. We're a club Quidditch team that was founded in 2016. We're actually one of 2 teams based out of the Chicago area and one of 5 teams in the Midwest region. And we've recently just completed our best season yet with an 11-7 overall record, and almost played in our first ever US Cup national tournament, but coronavirus and everything. But we're really excited to be here today. So thanks everyone for tuning in. So like I said, I'm Hannah. I'm the Chicago United president. This will be my second year, going into my second year with the team. But before I joined Chicago United, I played as a chaser for Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville for 3 years.
Hi, I'm Mark Witterman. I'm the one with the big mustache. I am Chicago United's beater captain. I've been on the Chicago team for 2 years now. And before that, I played beater for the Alfred University Saxons Quidditch team in New York for 5 years.
Hey everyone, I'm Danny. I'm going to be Chicago United's head coach this year. This will technically be my second full season with them, but before then I played at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign for 1.5 years.
Hi everyone, my name's Amy. I am the Chicago United Treasurer / Fundraising Chair. I've been on Chicago United for 3 years playing as a chaser, and before that I played for the Illinois Institute of Technology for 4 years.
So how exactly does Quidditch work? Danny, as the captain, why don't you, as the coach, why don't you tell us how it works?
So Quidditch is based on the sport from Harry Potter, the books and the films, either one. It's loosely based on it. As it's progressed, it's become more and more like different, but it still has those same elements. One unique thing about the sport is it's fully mixed gender-wise. So males, females, those outside the binary, everyone plays on the same teams. Another unique aspect about the sport is everyone has to play with a broom between their legs. The broom is basically just a PVC pipe that's like 3.5 feet long. The sport overall has elements of dodgeball, rugby, flag football, and strategically it's a little bit like basketball. There's a lot of different parts of the game. The 3 different areas, or the 3 different areas each use a different ball. So the quaffle, which is the main scoring ball, is in real life it's just a slightly deflated volleyball, so you can grip it easier. That's used by chasers and the keeper on each team. The bludgers, there are 3 of them. They are just a slightly deflated dodgeball. Those are used by the beaters, and the snitch is one of the most unique aspects of the sport. It comes into play later on. It's, in essence, it's just a tennis ball inside of a sock attached to a pair of shorts. These are specially made, but you can make like a homemade version. We'll get into that later. And that ball is used by the seeker. When you catch it, you get 30 points and the game ends. The Quidditch pitch, it's 66 by 36 yards, so smaller than a full-size soccer field. On the left of the slide, you can see the full dimensions in the red circles. It's where the 3 hoops are. The picture at the bottom shows how the hoops are kind of laid out. They're spaced apart. Throwing the quaffle through those gets you 10 points. The big circles that are circled in blue in the middle, that's just the starting position of all the balls. The quaffle is one of the 2 middle ones.
So what can every player do? What are the different positions? Amy, why don't you tell us?
Alrighty. So first, we'll start out with chaser. So all the positions are super cool to play in Quidditch. Everything is super exciting. The chasers, they wear a white headband, and their goal is to throw the quaffle through the hoops. The quaffle is that volleyball, slightly deflated volleyball that Danny mentioned. Now, this position mainly focuses on the game sort of like basketball. They're spread out around the field, they're making passes, they're driving to the hoops, and they're the ones that get to score the points. When you throw the quaffle through the hoop, any of the 3 hoops, you get 10 points. And the cool thing is you can score from the front of the hoop and the back of the hoop. So that adds to the strategy of the game. There are 3 chasers per team on the field at once, and they're all able to work together to pass the ball and score. But the hard part is you got to keep the broom in between your leg at all times. So that's probably a little bit different than most sports. The next position is the keeper. They wear a green headband, and their goal is to defend the hoops from getting scored on by the opposing team. So it's kind of like a goalie in soccer. They stand in front of the hoops, and they can use their hands to swat away the quaffle being shot by the other team. When they're not defending the hoops, they get to play along with the chasers, and they can score, they can run all over. But when the other team has the quaffle, they want to be by their hoops. And the cool part is they get to stick their hands through the hoop to defend, and they are immune from getting hit by bludgers, which we will talk about next. There is 1 keeper per team on the field at once.
And now we get to the Bludgers, probably one of the most unique parts of this game. So different from handball, there are beaters. Now the beaters wear a black headband, and the beaters' goal is to hit the other team's players with dodgeballs, which takes them out of play for a short time. So there are 2 beaters on the field per team, and their job is to take the Bludgers and hit the other team. And when you get hit by a Bludger, you have to dismount your broom, you have to take the ball, any balls you have, and put them down. You have to drop them. And you have to take the broom out from in between your legs and then return to your team's hoops and tag the hoops to return to play. And then there's the seeker, probably another very unique part of the game. Seekers wear a yellow headband, and they come in partially through the game after the snitch comes out. So their goal is to grab the snitch off of the back of the snitch runner's shorts. And once they do that, the game ends, and the team that caught the snitch is awarded 30 points. Whoever has the most points after the snitch is caught wins the game. The snitch runner is a neutral person, not on either team, kind of like a referee, and their goal is to protect the snitch from the seekers at all costs. There's 1 snitch runner for every game, and there are 2 seekers per team. Well, 1 seeker per team, so 2 seekers on the field. So, how do all genders play together in Quidditch? Hannah?
So actually, that's one of my favorite parts about Quidditch. And I think one of the most unique aspects of the sport is that all genders have the opportunity to play together and contribute equally together on the same team, on the same field. And so our rule book has a gender maximum rule built into it that helps ensure equal opportunity for all players of all genders to contribute. And that's called the gender max rule. And what it says is that there's a maximum of 4 players that identify as the same gender on the field at any one time. So that can be that might be 3 men and 3 women on the same team on the field at a time. That might be 4 men, 1 woman, and 1 non-binary player. You see a lot of different combinations. And then another thing I want to clarify when we say Quidditch is inclusive of individuals of all genders, is that Quidditch is explicitly inclusive of individuals of gender non-conforming players, non-binary players, and transgender individuals. And so these players have the opportunity to play as their real gender rather than what might be on their birth certificate, which isn't the case for all sports. So I just think that's a really cool part of Quidditch.
So how popular is Quidditch? How big does it get, Danny?
So Quidditch in the US has 3 different leagues that can be played. The first one and the biggest one is the Us Quidditch Association, USQ for short. It's kind of centered around college Quidditch, so the season goes from the fall to the spring. There is also a division in there for club players who are not in college or not enrolled in any school. There's over 100 college teams and there's about 35 club teams. The country is split into regions. Each region has a regional tournament that they compete in, and in that tournament they compete to get a bid to the national tournament, which is usually in April.
Yeah, so I think the USQ national tournament, it usually takes place in April.
And then the winner of the national tournament is the national. Sadly, the last U.S. Nationals that was going to be played this past April got canceled due to COVID, but we're in Ottawa in the this. And that goes on during the summer, so right in between one USQ and another USQ season. Am I back?
We can hear you now.
Okay, good. I don't know how much that I missed. The International Quidditch Association is just all the countries become one team. So the US has a national team. 21 or there's 21 total teams in the International Quidditch Association, and they have a World Cup every 2 years. So it was supposed to be this year in 2020, but again, things got postponed. So it's going to happen next year sometime. Those years in between, so 21 and 2019, there's like some events in each continent sometimes. So there's like European games. Last year in 2019, there was the Pan American Games, which was Mexico, Canada, and the US. So yeah, those are the 3 different leagues that there are.
So what if I'm not old enough to play for a club or a college team? How can I get involved, Amy?
Great question, Mark. So there actually are a bunch of ways that kids can get involved as well as parents. So there are these things called Quidditch events, little pun there, and also youth Quidditch workshops that are available. So the US Quidditch Association is really trying to increase the prevalence of Quidditch and availability of playing Quidditch throughout different communities. So different teams are working to make it more available. They might host Quidditch events, and they also might participate in Quidditch workshops that are being hosted by USQ. And so those will be around and advertised mainly at park districts or through teams' Facebook events. And so we will actually give all of you our team's contact information if you'd want to ask more questions about that. And also the greatest way is just to make homemade hoops and brooms so you can play it in your backyard. There are a lot of resources and rules on the US Quidditch. If you go to usquidditch.org, you can look up the rule book to figure out exactly how to play, and you can look up ways to make cost-effective hoops and brooms as well. And to the right side of your screen, you can see that there are virtual workshops now available in this age of COVID. So if you were interested in learning more about how to set up a workshop in your area for your school or even for your park district, send an email to youth@usquidditch.org or specifically to scott.rain@usquidditch.org.
So we would just like to thank the many people that took photos for us for this slideshow. Quidditch photos are very hard to come by, so shout out to them. This will now be an open Q&A, so any questions that you have, you can post them in chat, and we will try to answer them to the best of our ability. And here's just some links to our social media and our email.
Yeah, so Quidditch has actually been doing a lot to help keep everybody involved during the age of coronavirus. I know there's a couple leagues, or not a couple leagues, like some Quidditch publications who have run virtual brackets, and the other Chicago team was declared the runner-up of the US Cup, so that was fun to see.
Maybe while we're waiting for some people to put some questions in the chat, maybe we can go around and say our favorite thing about Quidditch.
Ooh.
Surprise question.
Let's see. I would say my favorite thing about Quidditch is that I've made so many good friends here. You know, only joining the team a year ago, it was, I don't know, you just find a group of people that you really click with, and it was unexpected, but a happy thing.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely am so grateful for the Quidditch community, and I'm grateful for just being able to learn how to play this unique sport and being able to share it with others. It's been super cool. And in case anybody was wondering, you don't have to be a Harry Potter fan to enjoy Quidditch. And also, you don't have to know previously how to play any of those other sports that are sort of involved in Quidditch to get interested in playing Quidditch. It kind of has its own set of skills. And so when you're joining, you get to learn everything, and everybody is so willing to help. And that's what I love about this community. And also it is kind of a benefit if you are a little bit of a Harry Potter nerd, because there will be a lot of other people who are as well.
My favorite thing about Quidditch is that it keeps me active. It's hard to stay in shape once you get into the adult world and you have all these responsibilities. So having a hobby that's very active and physically, I don't want to say taxing, but needed, physically imposing is great. It really keeps my energy up.
We had a question in the chat. Is it difficult to learn? I would say at the beginning, if you just show up to a practice and try to pick it up, it can be difficult to kind of understand at first what you're looking at. If you don't understand what positions are able to do what, it might take a couple practices to really get a feel for what you're doing. But after that, like Amy was kind of getting at earlier, it is similar to a lot of other sports. There aren't really any skills that are unique to only Quidditch. So if you have an athletic background, there are a lot of things in Quidditch that might come a little easier to you.
Yeah, I think Quidditch more than anything starts out overwhelming because there are different positions that all interact with each other, but I don't think it's difficult to learn. It just takes a little bit of time. So a couple of practices, like Hannah said, or just watching what's going on and realizing, oh, this person's running back to their hoops because they got hit with a bludger. Something like that. It's like simple in concept, but it takes repetition to get used to.
Yeah,
So-
I like you said that, Danny. I think like it's really if you're just want to play Quidditch in your backyard, if you know that the chasers score the points, the beaters are in control of the bludgers, and then the end of the game ends. The game ends with the Stitch being caught. Then Quidditch can be really simple to learn. But then once you're trying to get into all the strategy, there's a lot of stuff that is a lot of stuff you have to pay attention to, like what you're allowed to do and some different ways you're able to accomplish different goals. And so that's where it can get a little bit challenging, but it's also kind of exciting because once you get to learn all those nuances, Quidditch can be a really, really skillful game to play and exciting to watch.
And speaking of watching, can people watch your games as a spectator? Where is the best place to find the game schedule? Hannah, where can people find
Yes.
out where we are playing and when we are playing?
So we don't have anything planned for the immediate time being, but when we do have events planned, you'll best be able to find them on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/ChicagoQuid. So if you head over there, once we have a schedule, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be able to have some kind of schedule this year. You'll be able to find all the times there. And yes, you can check in as just a spectator too.
A lot of Quidditch there's a good chunk of Quidditch that does get recorded and put on YouTube. It's kind of hard to find specific like games because some of it is not really in one location. But if you go to YouTube and you search like Us Quidditch, you can find a YouTube channel that has a lot of games, or if you just search 2 team names and Quidditch, you might find games like that. Finding specific areas like just a Quidditch film archive or something is kind of tough.
I linked the video that you sent us in the chat.
Yeah.
So here's a good question. How competitive can Quidditch be? So, Danny, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I could take it. Quidditch can kind of be as competitive as you want it to be. I mentioned earlier there were 3 different leagues. Basically, the US Quidditch League, which is the biggest one I mentioned, anyone can play in that. There's no like, maybe certain teams have tryouts, but overall, anyone can just make a team if they wanted to. They get a group of 5, 6 people. They ask other people to join their team. They can make one like the next day. And like I said, they all compete for a national championship at the end. If you want to go for that, you can definitely, that's as far as you can go in that league. Major League Quidditch, there's a championship at the end of that one. That there's much fewer teams in that one, and there are tryouts for that one, so that's a little bit more competitive. And then once you get to the International Quidditch Association, so the international level, you're competing against other countries. So the best 30 people in the US versus the best 30 people in another country. I know a lot of people that their goal is to like make it to that team, because just being on that team, even if you're not as good as the other 29 people on your team, you're still top 30 in the country. And the US currently is the reigning International Quidditch Association champions. So it gets pretty big, as competitive as you want. Before the question started flooding in, I didn't get to go over my favorite part about Quidditch.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, that's not. I mean, my favorite part about Quidditch is that it can be so competitive, and that's kind of what fuels me and keeps me going, because I grew up on sports, and this is just a sport with a lot of new things to learn. It's a young sport, and like if I wanted to, I could keep playing for years and get as good as I can, and hopefully one day I could become one of the members on Team USA. So
Aspirations. We love it. Were you all into Harry Potter before learning to play Quidditch? What got you into it? So we can each answer this one. Well, I wasn't necessarily into Harry Potter, but I did grow up with like Harry Potter things surrounding me. I grew up with the movies, and my brother and sister were very, very into the books. I was not big on reading, so I only read like the first 3 books and then stopped. But when I got to college, the first day I was there was a Quidditch team demonstration, and I decided, hey, why not? And it ended up being a huge part of my college career and now my adult life even.
So for me, I got into it after my second year of college, and I saw a mutual friend at the booth, and he just kind of convinced me to come try out one practice, and I thought, one practice, and then I kind of fell in love with it. So 4 years later, here I am. But
And are you into Harry Potter?
am I into Harry Potter? A little bit, but I would say for a lot of people, that might be the driving factor that gets them into the sport. But once you get into the sport, I think how cool the sport is kind of takes over from the Harry Potter side of things. For me, for me at least.
No, I agree, Hannah. That makes sense. I was very into Harry Potter. I didn't start reading them until 7th or 8th grade, but when I did start to read them, I read them multiple times. But again, like what Hannah said, I knew what Quidditch was because of the books, but I was more interested in it as a sport, not as much as I want to cosplay Harry Potter by playing the sport. And I knew that some college teams had Quidditch teams available, and I knew that I did not really want to play an actual college sport or a like D3 college sport because it was just really intense. And so at my school, I unfortunately went to a school that didn't have a Quidditch team, so I tried out running cross country, D3 cross country, and I'm like, you know what? No, I'm going to start a Quidditch team at my school. So it is very possible to start Quidditch teams if you are planning on going to a college that doesn't have one. It is a lot of work, but it is super rewarding, and it became such a big part of my life that, yeah, as Mark said, now it's a part of my adult life as well, and it was a super great decision for me. It is competitive, and it's an awesome sport to get into, and you can make it as you can be as invested as you want. You can have it as a good source of exercise and friends, or you can have the goal of reaching the US team. So
Yeah, I think Hannah kind of said it best when she said Quidditch or Harry Potter gets you into Quidditch, but then Quidditch keeps you there. Like I was a Harry Potter fan, that's why I went to it. But then I stayed because I realized this is actually like a fun sport and it's new and you can learn so much and it's amazing.
So would you like to see Quidditch in the Olympics? Well, personally, I would love to see Quidditch in the Olympics. I think if Ultimate Frisbee can get into the Olympics, Quidditch should be in the Olympics.
Yeah, it would be cool to see. Maybe people would take us a little more seriously if we were in the Olympics, but
it is really hard to actually get Quidditch up to that level because there's a lot of questioning about the legal status of the name of the sport, which causes a lot of problems, especially when it comes to getting sponsors. Not a lot of companies are willing to sponsor a sport that might get them sued by WB. So I think in the future that needs to be sorted out if we ever want to get to the Olympics, especially.
Personally, I'm content with the amount of championships that there are in Quidditch. There's a good amount to watch.
And it is cool. You can stream the Quidditch World Cup on YouTube live. So it is available to the public. And once you start following some Quidditch teams on Facebook or social media, then you'll actually get to know where these championships are being streamed from, and you can tune in.
All right, so let's see if we can brainstorm some ideas for Sienna here. Her mom won't let her get on social media. How do you think we can help Sienna learn a little more about Quidditch?
If her mom wants to follow us, that's fine.
Yeah, so if your mom wants to follow us on her social media, and she could update you when we post things, or we have a Quidditch email. So if your mom would be more comfortable sending an email to us, we can follow up with her any questions she has. And also, if you let us know where you if your mom can tell us what park district you guys are associated with, we can try to communicate with them to see if they'd be willing to start any youth Quidditch programs there.
How many people are on the team or roster?
So okay, I'll take it. So I think in all the leagues, the roster size for particular games are 21 people, but you can have more people on the team. Us Quidditch doesn't have a limit on how many people you can have on the team, just on how many people can play in one particular game or in one particular tournament. But
well, unfortunately,
you can obviously change the roster.
I think
MLQ is a little bit tighter. I think it has 30 people on the roster. Oh, you just make a new team.
So another question we have is there a lot of contact in Quidditch? Is it like checking in hockey, or is it a little more like flag football?
Well, for different ages, the amount of contact is a little bit different. At the college level, Danny will be able to talk about this a little bit more, but it is full contact, so it's all genders are playing, and it is full contact. In the USQ, you are able to initiate contact with one arm from the front, and in MLQ, Major League Quidditch, you are actually able to use two arms to try and bring somebody to the ground if necessary, if they have the waffle. But if you are kids or even early teens, the main focus is trying to guard and steal the quaffle or bludgers from people without actually initiating any tackle contact. So for parents out there, if your kids are going to start playing Quidditch, the contact is very minimal. But if you have some college-age students who are going to play Quidditch, they will be required to wear a mouth guard.
How often do you all practice? We try during the peak of the season. I think we try to practice at least once a week, and right before any major tournaments or events, we have big practice weekends where we do two very long practices, both Saturday and Sunday, that tend to last the whole day. Danny, do you want to expand on that if I'm missing anything?
That sounds about right.
Okay.
Since Quidditch is such a complicated sport, since it has so many different positions and ways that they interact, longer practice weekends where you can talk about more strategy usually help, versus sports like soccer where it's more just like you just keep playing and you'll eventually get motions down. Quidditch has more like, oh, we can actually do this completely different, and then we have to practice that for good amount of time, stuff like that. But a couple times a month is fairly common for most teams.
Cool. What are the college teams around Chicago?
So in Chicago, we have Columbia College and Loyola University both have teams. Am I missing any big ones that are right in the Chicago area?
Those are the two official teams. I don't know how many unofficial teams there are because we don't know how many unofficial teams there are. So unofficial teams are teams that just aren't registered with US Quidditch. So they could just be teams that are maybe too small to go to any events, or maybe don't have the funding from their school, or don't have transportation to get to any events or stuff like that. So maybe they just play on their own. Most schools have at one point had an unofficial team. I know like Northwestern used to have an official team. I don't know if they still have anything going on, but yeah, in Chicago, Hannah pointed out the two that have official teams. And then there's the club teams, which is Chicago United, and there's another Chicago-based club team called Boom Train. They're a little bit more competitive.
Yeah, so like Danny said, if you are about to go into college, don't be discouraged if your college only has an unofficial team. There are a lot of tournaments that invite unofficial teams, and a lot of official teams go to them just because they want the practice, and because after all, it is a really nice community sport, and so they do want to just get as much time as they can playing other teams. And also, if you join your unofficial team and you gather enough people, you might be able to help the team become official status if you have enough. If you gain enough new players. So even if your team is unofficial, join it, have fun, and help it grow. And I think there's some questions about traveling.
Yes.
So for college, there are a lot of teams in the Midwest, and so if you do join a college team, most likely you will be traveling to play other teams. Chicago United is lucky whenever we get to play Loyola and Columbia and Boom Train, because they all tend to play in Chicago, but we have attended many other tournaments that are either further down south in Illinois or in Wisconsin or even in Indiana, and our team has even traveled all the way to Atlanta to play a tournament. So depending on how involved your the college team or club team is with other teams, you'll be doing more or less traveling, and that might be something you want to ask the president of the team before you join, just to see how much of a time commitment it will be.
What makes you all want to play Quidditch on top of other sports that are available? Maybe you all play multiple sports too. Well, for me, I wasn't very into sports, but I just thought Quidditch was really fun. It was funner than any other sport I've ever played. And I tried sports when I was younger. I have a very funny story about trying to dribble a soccer ball my first time going to soccer practice and getting kicked off the team. So it was just the sport that was right for me. I'd love to try hockey one day, but so far I just love Quidditch. Eeny, meeny, miny, moe.
You asked what keeps us going back to Quidditch, essentially.
Well, why Quidditch instead of other sports?
I think for me it's kind of easy, just because the sports I grew up playing were hundreds of years old, so it's pretty much boiled down to this is how you play, versus Quidditch, which has so many different ways of playing. Every team has a unique kind of play style. Each region, you can kind of tell where people are from based on how they play. For example, like the stereotype is the Southwest is they hit hard, they know how to, run through people, versus maybe the Midwest, which tries a little bit more of a passing offense versus things like that. So you're constantly learning. Every time you play a new opponent, you want to know how they play. It's just really interesting to keep learning. Sometimes I spend like my weekends just watching different film of old games, just to see like what new things I can learn from them. And yeah, it's a lot of fun.
For me, I think the draw was it's a sport you don't need Quidditch experience to get into it in college. I hadn't really played any team sports growing up, and so that really appealed to me. I would have felt weird walking up to a club soccer team or a club volleyball team, because I've never really played those sports. But I knew going into Quidditch that there would be a ton of other people like me who had never played Quidditch before, but were willing to give it a try. So that was kind of the appeal for me there.
I think I chose Quidditch and also keep coming back to Quidditch just because I feel like it's really cool to have this community and this bond with people who know how to play this unique sport. I grew up playing soccer my whole life, so I love fast sports like this. And even though this isn't really similar to soccer, I love the speed of it. And it really is cool when you're able to meet another person who you learn plays Quidditch, and you automatically have an immediate connection that a lot of other people might not be able to relate to. And so yeah, I keep coming back to Quidditch just because the community is amazing. It's kind of fun to say that you play this interesting sport. You do have to answer questions a lot just because a lot of people have not heard of Quidditch, but it's something that we're all willing to do because we want to spread the word of Quidditch around and make it even more popular so that our community can grow. So yeah, that's what I love about it.
How many teams are there across the nation? Other countries okay too? Well, in USQ there are over 110 teams, both located in the US and Canada. In Major League there are 15 teams, 13 in the US, 2 in Canada, and there are 21 worldwide teams that compete in IQA, the World Cup, but there are other Quidditch teams around the world scattered around that just play for fun. I know that there's the Japan team, and I know that there's a New Zealand team and an Australian team. So it's all over the world, and which is great. Okay. Did you all fly brooms to Atlanta? No, we flew planes, actually. Unfortunately. Would have been a lot slower on a broom.
These have been great questions so far. So thank you everybody for participating.
Yes, thank you. I have a Peterson broom. I do not have a Nimbus 2000. I have a Peterson. It's blue and black. And it's my prized possession, but I'm not allowed to use it in official games because it puts the other players at a disadvantage.
Mm.
They don't make them the way I got it anymore.
I have the newest model of PVC.
Yeah, can you customize them? I guess for your own practices, you can customize them, but usually at tournaments they have special tournament brooms just so they can make sure that everybody is regulation without having to go around and measure everybody's personal brooms.
You can make your own brooms that are, like, you can paint them different colors. I know I'm pretty close to the University of Illinois campus, and their team, like some of their players for fun, they just paint broom. Like they'll go to Home Depot, get a 10-foot thing of PVC that can make 3 brooms, and they'll paint them different colors, and they'll be like, okay, this one's mine. But as long as the broom is regulation size and the correct thickness and all that, you can customize it any way you want. And then when you go to tournaments, you just show the ref like, hey, this is my broom, it's correct, and they're like, okay, yeah, you can use it. And then a broom is 40 inches long, so a little bit less than 3.5 feet.
Yeah,
And for kids, the brooms might be a little bit smaller, just because it might be hard for a 3 or 4 foot high child to use a 40-inch broom. But 40 inches regulation for college and probably high school as well.
There used to be a website where you could buy a personalized broom with your own personal color and personal colored grip tape and word letterings, and you could even request to put designs on it. I don't know if that company is still up and running, but that's where I got my broom. Do you all practice in Chicago or in the suburbs? We mostly practice in Chicago, I think.
For the future, we're looking to expand where we go to make it accessible for everybody. So suburbs might be coming soon. If we can find a field that's hopefully free and
available and easy to get to by everyone that's scattered across Illinois, that's a part of our team, and parts of Wisconsin too.
Yeah, that is the cool part about Chicago United, is that it is, even though it says Chicago United, includes the Chicago suburbs as well. So we have some people who actually live in the city. Like, for example, I live in South Loop, and other people can live as far as even Springfield. We have some members who are in Springfield on our team, so all over. And so we try to have practices that multiple people can get to from different areas.
And I think let's make this maybe our final question. Is do we play college teams as well as other club teams? And the answer to that would be yes. So yeah, just because we are a club team under US Quidditch doesn't mean we have to only play other club teams, especially because the club teams in the Midwest are all kind of spread out. It's nice to be able to have the option of playing other college teams who are closer. So that's good for us at the very least.
Yeah, and at the finals cup for USQ, it's actually split between club and college. So that way you don't have club teams competing with the college teams for the final. Because in some aspects that might be seen as unfair, because you have players that have been playing for 6 or 7 years versus people who've only been playing a maximum of 4. So for the final cup, it's split up. What is the best thing about Quidditch? What is the one best thing about Quidditch?
I would. Oh, go ahead, Danny.
Go ahead, Hannah.
I would say the best thing about Quidditch for me is I really enjoy seeking. I usually play Chaser, but every so often I get the opportunity to play Seeker, and it's fun because you usually get to chase around or kind of grapple with the snitch runner, who is either running away from you really fast or kind of trying to wrestle you off of them to protect the little snitch sock on their back. And so it's just kind of a fun physical challenge for me that is not like things I've ever done before. So that's my best part.
For me, I think the best thing about Quidditch is that it just kind of fulfills everything in the sense that it has like a social aspect, it has a sport aspect, it has a competitive aspect. It kind of does everything. Like, even though we haven't been able to play Quidditch through this quarantine, there's been a lot of interaction online, not just through like talking, but through like, oh, let's simulate the national championship because we can't go. So they had a whole bracket set up for all the teams that were going to make it, and you were kind of, on the sideline sitting there like, okay, hopefully the simulation is in my favor and we win. But that's kind of cool. It's competitive because you can be as competitive as you want, become world champions, national champions, whichever, regional champions. It's athletic, like Mark said way earlier. It keeps you active. It's something to do, even if you aren't sitting there trying to be competitive. And pretty much all my friends are Quidditch players at this point. That's kind of what my life has become. So it does everything I need.
Amy?
Sure. I definitely agree with Danny. He said it pretty perfectly, how Quidditch does have the social and the competitive athletic aspect. And so I guess something specific for me is that I've never actually gotten to play a sport where there's this much contact between players. So I played basketball, and even the slightest bit of contact there, it's a foul or a turnover. And soccer is, you can sort of have contact, but not really. And so this is the first sport where I can actually try to tackle somebody, which is just a fun thing to think about. Now with the new two-hand tackle rule for MLQ, a 5-foot tall girl can actually be a threat on the field to a 6-foot tall boy. So yes, that's like something specific that is cool about Quidditch. But overall, I agree with what Danny said. It's a big part of my life, and I'm really glad that I found it.
Yeah, you guys probably you took all of mine. I really love how inclusive Quidditch is, because I know for a fact that I probably wouldn't have as much fun in a gender exclusive sport. If Quidditch were a gender exclusive sport, I know that I probably wouldn't have so much fun. One of my closest friends in college was transgender, and she got to play, so it was incredible. So yeah, I love how inclusive it is. It's and all of my friends get to play, all of the girls, all the boys, all the non-gender. It's really great, and I absolutely love that. And with that, I think we're just about done. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
This was really fun.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, guys. It was great, and I mean, we had some really great questions too, so really good discussion. So thank you very, very much.